Anything to declare?
Yeah, don't go to England.
All right, so this is number 4, episode number 4. Very exciting, very exciting. Good friend Joseph joining us as usual.
Hello.
Hello. And we have another Joseph here. His name is Joe Button. And so, Joe, my first question is actually from my girlfriend. She wanted me to ask you if you're related to Benjamin Button.
No.
Okay, I kind of figured that's what your answer would be, but you just got to be sure.
Yeah.
So, what do you do for fun, Mr. Joe Button?
I usually play games and stream them and make videos.
That's awesome because we love us some games.
Yes, that's why we're doing this.
I think it's safe to say that there's a specific game that has kind of ruined one of our lives.
One of our lives?
Well, it hasn't ruined both of our lives, but it's definitely ruined one of our lives, and it might be yours.
We used to have an apartment together, and I think for the 5 or 6 months we lived together, the majority of that time was occupied with good old Ninja Gaiden. And if you can hear my son screaming in the background, that's what our apartment sounded like more times than not, because that freaking game, I wouldn't say it ruined my life, but it dominated my life.
Oh, it ruined mine, 100%.
Well, was it? It was 2005, right? Way back when?
2005.
2004 was the original. 2004 was just Ninja Gaiden, which was actually a remake of the the NES ones.
Yeah.
And
I remember when you came home with Ninja Gaiden Black, you're like, dude, they released some expansion shit for this game. This will be so fun.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be fun, and it was the summer of 2005. We had the apartment together, and you don't want to be playing that game and you're sharing a building with other people, because it worked its way to us pretty quickly that other people could hear us, and by us I mean me, just shouting out all sorts of B words and C words at Alma, and just I don't know how many controllers I snapped in half.
Well, it was also kind of a bad idea to have such a big ass controller at the time, and I don't know how we didn't end up getting stuck with stuff coming out of our deposit or whatever for holes in the wall because of that boat anchor of a fucking controller.
That was our experience with it. Yeah, so JTB, the whole reason we're talking about this is because around September of last year, my buddy here came down.
I don't know what you're talking about. I plead the fifth on all of what he's about to say.
No. This is a fine and innocent tale. My son was born last July. He just had his first birthday, and around September, October last year, my friend here came down to visit and to see the kid, because I think of all people to have a child, I might have been last in line when it comes to expectations. So while he's down visiting in with us, he's just like, "Hey man, get your Xbox out. Let's play Ninja Gaiden." And I said,
well, in my defense, too, you also put me in the room with that Xbox that was in the closet.
Yeah.
And of course, I was going to snoop through your shit, and of course, I found it. So what I really think happened is that you put it there with the intention of me finding it.
Yeah, I think. It
sounds like what I would do, because at the moment I'm single at the moment. But this is definitely what I would do, as a ploy to get the Xbox set up. That's something I would do 100%. So
just set it up all non-discreet, like it's right.
Oh, my friend's coming over. He might happen to find this Xbox lying around, and we might need to set this up.
I think at the end of the day, I did want him to fight it, because that was one of our. I guess our great unifiers. We go back a while, and if you were to map out some of the things that we have in common, it's Dragon Ball Z and I guess Ninja Gaiden. Even though he sucks at it, and I force myself to get good at it.
Hey, I would say that I'm better than almost the entire population of the planet at that game. But you two are better than me. I'll admit.
That's how I found you, JTB. Was because
cool.
He needed help. He needed help.
So much help. Even on normal, I was like, I've lost it. I can't figure out. I can't get it back. I don't know what happened, and I just started YouTubing Ninja Gaiden playthroughs. Just to get an idea for it. And I found your channel, and that's all it was just
pretty
so much Ninja Gaiden from from normal to Master Ninja, and I watch your Master Ninja videos. I'm like, Jesus, this dude's a god. So if we're gonna transition from just this conversation between me and Dietrich waxing nostalgic, transition from that into a for real interview. I mean, we already established I go back years with these games. What's your history with the game? You know, I mean, let's just go back to the beginning.
Pretty much from day one
for us.
Yeah.
How to start for you?
Yeah, pretty much from day one. I did have a couple of questions just out of curiosity. Is it an original Xbox you guys played it on?
Yes.
Do you by any chance
way back in the day? I mean, obviously it was an OG, and we tried getting the OG Xbox out and hooking up to my my flat screen, but I couldn't figure out where the component cables went. It turns out there's like a panel you have to pop off. So we're sitting there like, man, we can't plug the giant Xbox in because there's nowhere for the red and the yellow and the white to go.
Yeah.
And then we found out, it's backwards compatible. In
Young
Xbox
people listening have no idea what this means. Like, what's a component cable?
What colors are you speaking of? Why?
Oh, okay.
HDMI is just one plug.
Yeah, I was thinking because if by any chance you have the original Xbox One, the original Xbox, it's so confusing now. Xbox One and like original Xbox, the tank. Original Xbox.
That's the way of putting it.
The tank.
Yeah.
I love it.
And because that had the DLC on it, which was the Hurricane packs, which unfortunately you cannot get anymore because they're only on the original Xbox Live, and that went down and just everything went with it. You know, it was just like it was kind of a purge because I did some HP1 stuff earlier at the beginning of last year. And this might be skipping ahead a little bit, but I've always said, like, since around 2010, once I stopped playing the game for score, you know, with the goal of going for the high scores, I always said, like, I was adamant, like, I'm never doing another high score run ever again. Like, I'm never, ever, ever going to do that. And I just happened to get out the old Xbox and thought, I'm going to, I have this save from Hurricane Pack 1. Let me see what this is like. Can I find anything new here? And it was just the biggest can of worms I've ever opened because within like 10 minutes, I was finding all these new strategies and thinking, okay, let's do it just one more time. And that's what I did it for. And people were commenting like, oh, how do I get these? How do I get these? You know, how do I play this? Because they have the intercept technique, which is like the parry, which makes the game ridiculously easy because the window on that parry is actually very, very generous. It's not like an Onimusha or, critical hit system. It's super, super lenient. And it sucks in a way to respond and say, well, unfortunately, you can't because you can't get them anymore, which is a real shame. But I was just wondering if you guys had a chance to play that at all, either of the expansions.
Well, I'm trying to remember. I don't think
we had internet at the time.
No, I think if I ever had Xbox Live, it was just to play Halo 2. So that was after the apartment. That was after that phase of Ninja Gaiden every day I guess had passed. So no, I don't think I ever got into the Hurricane packs.
Oh, it's such a shame.
I remember we used to go to there was a campus nearby called Miami, and we would go there to check our emails and crap. I mean, it was a different time not having internet readily available.
Yeah, I mean, I can relate. I know I listened to your previous guys' shows, and I think you guys are a little bit older than me by a couple of years. I'm 30. Yeah, I'm 31 this year.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, like, I never had internet, on my consoles. Funny story, I remember I actually was super late to the Hurricane packs in Ninja Gaiden. It was like a huge gap in sort of my experience in that game. I was at university at the time when they shut down Xbox Live. I saw that, just on the news. I was like, oh shit, I need to get these. I need to actually download them. So I actually borrowed an Xbox from a tutor that had one just lying around. And connected it all up, and that's how I got the Hurricane packs. I was able to get that stuff downloaded finally and have those on my system. And when they went away, they went away for good. It's with a lot of the recent backwards compatibility stuff they've done. I think if the game was bigger and had more of a legacy, they'd be more inclined to do it. But I would kill for them to actually just make NGO4 backwards compatible and give us, the Hurricane packs again, just so people.
Well, it's interesting you bring up the legacy of that game because if anybody actually listens to this, I just want to make sure everybody knows this game, all these games are hard. I mean, just not hard in the Dark Souls kind of sense, because there's no leveling up. It's all just based on reflexes, and it's incredibly hard, but it's fair at the same time, kind of. It doesn't seem fair if you get your ass kicked.
Mm-hmm.
It's unfair up until you have, sacrificed a year of your life and you remember everything. It's sort of like Devil May Cry in that aspect. I think NG overall is harder.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think NG is the harder game, but there are things that every now and then people will ask a question and a comment on a video, and it's really useful when people do that. They'll ask something really simple to me, but I've thought, okay, I've stopped thinking about the game in this way a long time ago. So when people actually say, "Oh, how do you do that technique that you did, in this part of the video?" and I can explain it and say, "Oh, actually, this is how that works," and explain it in a way that hopefully people understand, and then that kind of gives them just another piece of the puzzle to make that part of the game a bit easier for them, and really that kind of is what that game is, on every level. It's just, if something happens and you kind of don't know why you died or why you got hit, you're missing a piece of information, and really all you need is that information, and like, you'll do okay next time.
Well, yeah, I think I was one of those people. I left a comment on one of your videos a while ago because you were doing those on-landing jumps, and I was like, how the hell is that guy doing that? And so I left a comment. I was just like, hey, how do you do this? And you were like, oh, you gotta release the thumbstick and then reapply it and then press the jump button at the same time. You have to time it perfectly. And just a little bit of practice, I was able to nail it.
Mm-hmm.
And you even made a video on it, I think, in response to that, like a week or two later. You were like, hey, I've actually gotten this question a few times. So,
yeah,
let's get the controller cam out and let's demonstrate. But, I mean, you mentioned in a few of your videos that the manual for the game, nothing tells you how to do anything. So you discovered on-landing jumps and the on-landing forward Ys. How do you find these?
That's something that really, you just have to play the game a lot. With a lot of the techniques were focused around karma running, which is just the phrase used to describe a high score run. Really, you go through the game trying to get as many points as possible. The point system is called karma, so karma run is where that came from. And all those techniques, I didn't find all of them, obviously. But on landing stuff was, and again, this is a weird thing to kind of catalog, because back then, there was no YouTube when the game first came out. Yeah. There was just game FAQs or game facts, depending on, if you want to say FAQ or facts. Some people get really bent out of shape over that.
Don't know why.
Yeah, me neither. Whichever works for you. So it was pretty much just that forum was all you had, really. And it was kind of hard to explain some of these techniques. For example, on landing was kind of tricky. People struggled with that. On landing forward Y, for example, on landing directional input. I think it was Balbade who first showed that. He was a player from, sort of way back when the game was really thriving. He doesn't play anymore, unfortunately, but he had amazing scores on the game. And I think he was the first person to show that technique. But that's where you get into the differences in the games, because to any kind of, I hate the phrase casual, because I think it sounds really elitist when people say, oh, casual gamer, there's whatever, play whatever you want. But to the average person, for lack of a better word, NGO4, Ninja Gaiden Black, and Ninja Gaiden Sigma, they're all built on kind of the same engine. But to me, they're as different as, Halo, Tetris, and Pac-Man.
Yeah, I can see why. I can see why a term like casual would come up when you're talking about a game like that, because that game's fucking insanely hard.
It is insanely hard, and early on, I think that's one thing in general that's gotten better. I don't want to yo-yo on a different topic, but I think now with YouTube and Twitch, and in general, I think for the most part, posting stuff online, videos and tutorials and that, I think in general people are a lot more kinder to receive that stuff. They're more appreciative. Back then, especially before YouTube, because I've been making videos, even in NGO4, before YouTube was a thing, and it was such a hassle to do that back then. You could make a video on how to fight a boss, with the intention of helping people, and the thread would just be like, oh, you fucking suck. You would get nothing. And of course, the people posting these comments would have nothing constructive to offer, what would you suggest I do to improve? And I mean, that's still true to this day. Every now and then I'll get a comment like that. And I had one not long ago. I did a new Eternal Legend Karma run, which is a mission to make a video for that. And one of the comments I saw was, oh, only UTs? What a noob. And I don't often respond to people like that, because one thing that the more comments I get, I don't have time sometimes to respond to all the positive ones, so I don't want to waste time responding to some douchebag. But that one I kind of couldn't resist, and I responded like, you clicked on a karma run expecting what exactly? Because the whole point of a karma run, is to get as many points as possible. You get bonus points for UTs, so like, what did you expect, sort of thing. But to get back to the original question, I think it was how I got into NG, because it's hard for me to talk about NG. It's why I'm glad I've got these questions that you sent me to keep me on topic a little bit, because I could talk about this game for years. I really could. But I originally got NG, I think it was about 2 weeks after it came out. If I remember rightly, I think NGO4 came out in September of 2004. And again, this was, it sounds weird to anyone listening, I suppose it's a bit younger, but like the internet wasn't how it is now in 2004. There wasn't Twitter, there wasn't Facebook, there wasn't, YouTube, and there wasn't all these feeds. Smartphones weren't a thing. So you actually had to go on a computer to go on the internet, and not everyone had a computer, and not everyone had the internet. So I didn't even know that the game was out. But I got an Xbox for my birthday that year as a replacement because my PS2 died. I had one of the fat PS2s, the really big ones. And,
I had
that,
one of those too.
And that died, and I thought, well, this Xbox has come out. Why don't I get an Xbox instead? So I went to HMV, which is like a physical media store. So, they don't exist anymore. That sold like games and stuff. And I just saw the cover of Ninja Gaiden and thought, I remember this game. Like, they remade this, and picked up the case, looked on the back, and thought, this has got to be good. Like, let's get this. And I recognized Tecmo and Team Ninja from like Dead or Alive. So I thought, okay, these guys would probably make a really good action game. Took it home, and just, the rest is history. Just immediately spent just like a week solid just playing it. I remember getting to the first boss on Mirai, and you get through that first level, and the first level is sort of a little bit button mashy friendly on normal, because you can just kind of XX your way through it, and then you get to Mirai, and there's that awesome cutscene where he does the nunchucks, and they make the Bruce Lee noise, so the game isn't messing around, and then everyone just gets their ass kicked by Mirai, and you get killed.
Yeah, you're thinking it's going to be kind of simple, and then, oh my god, he's not letting me hit him, and he's smacking me around. This is
my ass.
Yeah, it's such an interesting design, and I feel like it's why I think Ninja Gaiden's quite unique in design level as an action game, because I think of it more as a fighting game. If you look at it from a fighting game perspective, I've played fighting games competitively as well. When you look at Ninja Gaiden through the lens of a fighting game, everything just clicks. Like Mirai, to someone who just runs up to him and starts mashing buttons, and he gets countered and hit and grabbed and he dies, is going to think, oh, this is unfair, I can't hit him. And you think, look at it from a different perspective, you're just trying to attack him at the wrong time. If you wait for your opportunity, you can hit him every time. And I think that's quite unusual in most action games, even though it's not usually the optimal strategy. Any given enemy, any given time, you can just run up to them and hit them, and you will do damage. Like, they won't block your attack or dodge you, or even more, counter you. Like, counters are quite rare in action games, from at least my memory. Like, I can't remember too many games where enemies will actually counter you, for being too aggressive. And I think that's why NG really just clicked with me, because I'm a huge fighting game fan, and one way I always try and sum up NG when you put enough time into it is, it's the fighting game that once you get good enough at, you never lose. And imagine, if you could play a fighting game, against human players, and just, you could read their mind, essentially, which is what you can kind of do in NG, because it's obviously a single-player game, and you recognize attack patterns, animations. Imagine if you could just play 100 million people in, Street Fighter 2 and just never lose. How good that would feel. That's kind of how NG feels. It takes a while to get to that point, but...
I've had a kind of guilty pleasure lately of watching people play Street Fighter 5 online lately. And I mean, some of these guys are absolutely incredible at it. You can watch these top tier players, and they figure out exactly the right distance for their character for every little situation, and pretty much if you jump at your opponent, you're going to get anti-aired, and you got to do everything you can to avoid getting punished, which is basically attacking and missing. That leaves an opportunity for your opponent to just wail on you, and it's really interesting to watch all the technique that goes into this. and I find myself watching this all the time. I play Injustice every now and then, and I'm kind of doing. After watching all these Street Fighter videos, I kind of do what they do. I mean, obviously not to the skill level they have, but it helps. Just making sure you're doing everything at the right time. And I never thought of Ninja Gaiden as a fighting game, but it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, if you look at it, because that's why I feel it's always very unique, because especially back when it came out, DMC was sort of king of the castle in terms of 3D action games, like DMC 1. DMC 2 was terrible, but like DMC 1 was so good. That. Yeah. People just talked about DMC 1 really. And it was always, what's better, DMC or NG? And I think they're both third-person action games, but they don't play, even similarly in my book. I think DMC is a completely different beast to Ninja Gaiden. It's still difficult, but in its own way. DMC is just sort of more focused around, if you make one mistake in that game, say goodbye to like 60% of your life bar. That's still the case in NGB, but items are more plentiful in NGB, so it's not that big of a deal. Whereas in Devil May Cry, like you only kind of get that one health bar. Items are incredibly expensive in that game's money system. So
I was watching one of Joseph's little playthroughs, and I think you're on Master Ninja or whatever, and you go up to this little spot in the city. I can't remember what the city's called, but anyway, there's a little tiny hole in the wall where you're grabbing a scarab, and some asshole on the ground is shooting grenades, and you have a full bar of health.
Oh yeah.
And this one guy hits you from a mile away with one of these grenades, and I think it killed you, actually.
Yeah, I think you're right. So so Ninja Gaiden is unique as an action game because it's also like an open world kind of game. Because Tehran, however you want to say it.
That's the city I meant to say.
It's sort of a hub, and you can go to everywhere, and you can backtrack and do all these different things. So yeah, you're thinking about I want to say chapter 4 because you're off the Zeppelin after you beat Dynamo. Mm-hmm. And you go down the ramp, and instead of going to the right down the staircase to go to Miramasa's or whatever, you rappel or you hang off the wall, you climb up. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. It's a little alcove, and that son of a bitch that you can't get to unless you climb on the clothesline on the rope across to him. And I'm miming the action right now. I don't know why. Nobody can see me with my hands.
This dude is off screen and half a block away.
Yeah, and usually if you have somebody off screen, they don't, for whatever reason, and you point this out, JTV, especially with the Berserkers, if they're off screen, it's like they just hang out. They don't do nothing. Well, this son of a bitch is just like, I don't care. I'm just going to shoot you with these tear gas grenades, and I'm going to kill you in 1 or 2 shots. And somehow, Dietrich's on your phone.
I'm so sorry.
Somehow, he freaking threads the needle with these grenades in this little box I'm hanging out in. And he freaking wipes me out.
Actually, I know exactly the segment you're talking about, and it's like the amount of garbage that game has thrown at me over the years is unreal. But like, I know how that feels. You're like, you son of a bitch. You think, oh man, like he got me.
That's why I've probably legitimately broken a couple controllers. I'm surprised I haven't thrown one through a TV yet.
I've mentioned it on stream a couple of times that the current Karma run I'm doing on my Monday stream, just to show it because it's never been shown. Like when people show the Karma run, usually they only show the bit where it went well. You never see the attempts where they failed, and I think that's kind of true in a lot of modern stuff now on YouTube. And that people only post the successful run. You never a lot, and I think that kind of creates false expectations of, oh well, this guy is so good, he does all this stuff. And for someone like my content, I think it is, but you don't see the 50 attempts sometimes that it literally took to get that on video.
Right. And excuse me, that's one of the questions that I sent you was because I was going through some of your more recent videos yesterday, and I was watching I think chapter 3 of your Karma run, and you reset 15 times. Because that first battle in the first compartment you walk into just doesn't go exactly the way you want. So you're not maximizing the karma that you're able to get because you're not able to forward wipe both of them or ET right or something. And you just You reset, you carry on, you try it again a different way. It doesn't work out. You reset, you do it again. How the hell do you not like lose your shit after resetting a dozen times?
I was going to ask you that. How do you not get so frustrated?
Oh my god, seriously.
I mean, with NG, because I know eventually I'll get the pattern I need, and then this is where like karma running, especially back when the game was kind of thriving, like a lot of the push was towards karma running. They even had a Master Ninja tournament for HP 1 and 2, like Hurricane Pack 1 and 2, where they hosted like this, like awesome esports event. Like you could compete. I was heartbroken that I could not play in that. So I was like, it was in America and I didn't have Xbox Live. I was so upset because I was thinking like, I'm good, I want to play, but I couldn't at the time. And that was a really big point of debate, and it still is for some people. It's always like, what's the point in karma running? What's the point in going for the high score if all you do is reset? And that's not an entirely invalid point. I've said it myself, like if you don't get the pattern you need, you'll never get the highest amount of points ever. Sometimes you need a specific pattern. The challenge and the enjoyment from my point of view is, once you get that pattern, you still need, an insane amount of knowledge about the game and very, very good execution to actually maximize the points. On a lot of the encounters that you see where, you're making time limits by literally, 100th of a second. If you're off by 1 frame on your input, if you delay, a split second too long to do something, if you hesitate, if you fail in your execution, there's so many things that could go wrong. Being able to manipulate all those things, and sometimes when you have gauntlets where you have to do that multiple times in a row before you can save, that's where the challenge is for me, and that's why I enjoy it. And I've always had a weird fascination with watching numbers go up. I don't know why. Like watching that karma score just get higher and higher. I guess that might come from like when I was younger, I used to play a lot of arcade games. Like high scores was always a thing for me. And it's what goes into getting that high score. A lot of especially in the early days, it was people would just say, "Oh, it's just spamming UTs." And I've always said this, pick any karma run that I've done or anyone else has done that is of a high level. I guarantee you, if all you do is spam UTs, you'll never beat that score. You won't even come close because you don't actually have the knowledge necessary to control the enemies. And that's where it's a bit weird. In looking back on a lot of my older videos, I do sometimes get people commenting, "Oh, this one doesn't have commentary. Like it's a shame because you give a lot of insight when you commentate." And that was always something that I guess I just never really thought of. And that's something where doing commentary and actually having people ask questions is really beneficial, because there are things I do that to me I don't think about. For example, wind run like XY on landing to charge a UT. To someone who's never seen that before, they don't really know what I'm doing. And they don't know the motivation behind it to get that, UT to charge and get the timing all, so it matches up and you make your time limit. When I commentate, I can explain, "Oh, I'm actually doing this at this time to get this enemy to do this, so then I can do this and, get the outcome I want." Whereas if you just see the video, a lot of that is sort of lost in the translation. You don't really know that unless you know it. So, to someone who doesn't know, it's somewhat useless, which I think is why karma runs, generally speaking, don't get a lot of views, because the average person playing NG will watch that and the only thing they can really recognize is, "Oh, this guy's doing a lot of UTs." That's it, Sort of like a really high-level speed run in a lot of ways, where, unless you know the game quite well, you can watch it and think, well, this is really cool, but a lot of the nuance here is actually going over my head. I don't really get, what he's doing here.
Yeah, that's me. That's me right there. I just want to slice some bitches in half.
Did you really have the #1 world record for speedrunning in Master? And was it Master Ninja or was it just?
At one time, I had both. Yeah, I had normal and Master Ninja.
Oh my god.
Well, yeah, no, actually, I take that back. At one time, I had single segment, segmented, and single segment for Master Ninja. Although the Master Ninja one almost doesn't count because mine was the only single segment Master Ninja speedrun out there. Like no one had done one. So that was a record, but it was a record by default, if that makes sense,
So we're saying like start to finish, no cuts, no interruptions, no reset.
Yeah.
I still think you hold the world record for broken controllers over that game. If that makes you feel better.
It doesn't.
I probably have more. I can think of at least 4. Like off the top
I
of my
remember
head.
coming home from work and saying, "Hey, you should play some Ninja Gaiden." And you'd be like, "I can't. Why not? I broke the fucking controller." Oh man, we gotta buy another one. Jeez.
Games have gone up, controllers have stayed the same, like $40-$50.
Yeah, I can relate to that. Funnily enough, I still have one of my older controllers for the original Xbox, where I think the only thing that doesn't work on it is the left trigger, because it must have just hit the wall, right on the left trigger. And I thought, I'm gonna keep this as some kind of weird sentimental thing of like, this is the last controller that I was playing NG on that Xbox,
Probably has some like drywall dust on it still too.
It probably does, yeah, 100%.
Are there any, or do you have any favorite, so I was going to ask about hardware. Like, is there any controller that you prefer, whether we're talking about the original Giant Duke or the Xbox One?
Oh, yeah, I remember that. I was just looking at your questions now, so I can kind of keep on topic here. I was a big fan of the Duke for NG and NGB, because of the way that was laid out. It was almost a 6-button layout. Do you guys remember, like, the Saturn? Like the Sega Saturn controllers. That had a 6-button layout. So if you had, like, a claw grip, it was actually really, really good. I've got fairly large hands, so the Duke was actually really comfortable for me to use just with my thumb on those 6 buttons and having the trigger. But really, as long as it's not the PS3 controller, which is terrible for Ninja Gaiden, I'm not that fussed. I do think the 360 controller is maybe the best one though, just because of the bumpers. Like the bumpers are right there. And if you mess around with some controls, like for example, I don't know if everyone does this, but like I always hotkey Nimpo. Like that was one of the first things I changed in the controls was put Nimpo on a single button, so you never drop it.
You can't do that in NG2, which pisses me off.
You can't. That's really strange in NGB. And funnily enough, I was playing Deadly Premonition on Saturday. I was playing that on stream, which is a really old game and like really kind of janky. I don't know if you guys have ever played that or seen it played, but it's very much a budget game, and one of the things I always champion in a game is when they enable you to fully customize the controls. You can, like in NGB, for example, if you wanted to, you could have jump on the left trigger if you want. Who knows why you would want that, but if you want it, you can do it. Deadly Premonition lets you do that. Hardly any games let you change the controls the way you want them. They give you layouts, but most of the layouts really are just, we'll swap the triggers over for you. It's nothing.
Really all it is.
It's nothing significant. So yeah, when I found that out for NG, like hotkey Nimpo, you have the bumpers right there. The 360 controller again just fits my hands really well because I use the chat pad on the 360 because it's a lot more comfortable. But yeah, as long any Xbox controller I think is fine. The only thing that is really bad is just the PS3 controller for Sigma because the PS3 analog sticks are just junk. They're just so bad.
Yeah, I always thought that too. And they're really small too.
Yeah, that's one thing that never bothered me when I was a kid on the PS1 and PS2. But then when I got older, and of course, got bigger, my hands like dwarf a PlayStation controller. It's just so small, and like I don't have crazy large hands, but like I can sort of like cover a PlayStation controller pretty easily with one hand, and it's just you almost have to like claw grip a PlayStation controller. Your bottom fingers don't have anywhere to kind of rest on there, which is unfortunate.
I used to dabble in Street Fighter a little bit on the PlayStation 3, and the Shoryuken, it's forward, down, forward, and then whatever. Doing that forward, down, forward would eventually just make my thumb so raw, and I'm like, if they would just like shave this corner down on these D-pads just a little bit, it would be so much easier. It's like a rite of passage or something.
I guess it is, and that's something that I played a lot of Halo 2 back in the day. Like, obviously, it was offline because I didn't have Xbox Live, so we would just LAN it. Like, we'd get a bunch of people together, a few Xboxes, and the people that didn't play, like after like an hour or two, they'd be like, "Oh, my hands hurt, my fingers hurt," and people that have like kind of grown up playing games, you think, really? That's weird because you're so great. Like you're so used to it. You're like, you got like leather fingertips by playing games all this time.
I remember a time when you would play Halo for a little bit and then be like, "Fuck this! I'm going back to Ninja Gaiden."
Yeah, that was I do remember playing a lot of Halo 2. I after the apartment, I moved back in at my dad's place, and he had internet, but he only had like one Ethernet port upstairs. So I would just steal the modem and the cord and plug it into the jack in my room and plug that into the Xbox. I'd play Halo 2 online all night. If you ever played Halo 3 on,
I
on
played
Xbox
a lot of
Live,
Halo 3.
same thing. It was the exact same thing. It was just a lot of fun. It was an innocent, simpler time where you can just get on there with an actual group of people and just I don't know, just horse around. It was a good time.
I
You remember how bad the PS2 online experience was?
Yes.
Yeah, my stepbrother tried playing SOCOM online, and I remember watching.
Oh my gosh, it was so jank.
This is awful.
Did you guys ever play?
Never even got close to figuring that out.
No, they even like it took them a while on the PS3 actually too. When if you think about it, like the PS3 launched and it was really weird. On the PS2, by the way, did you guys ever play the first Killzone game?
No, I never got into that.
Oh, that was at the time. It's so funny to say it, but like they really did tout that as like this is the PlayStation's answer to Halo. Like fuck Halo, play Killzone. and like Killzone
I don't believe that was true.
No. And like Killzone was good, but it was good because it was just janky as hell and just really glitchy and funny. And a friend of mine had online on his PS2. And I always think of this as kind of a yardstick of how bad the online was on PS2. We tried to play it, and it was so bad that we eventually just, screw this, we'll just play offline with bots, it's more fun. Like, it was just, the latency, and just it was so just unreliable. But yeah, like Killzone 1 was really funny. I remember seeing the box art for that, and it literally said, like, the Halo killer has arrived, and it was like 9 out of 10 from some magazine. And surely it would have been 10 out of 10, but whatever. Yeah. But yeah, it definitely was not on the tier of Halo at all.
I wonder if they ever made online for Dragon Ball Z Tenkaichi 3. That would have been fun.
Yeah, it would have been fun. And I mean, you got fighters now, and they're still coming out with new characters on a second season pass. Which until this and Final Fantasy 15, I didn't know a game could have more than one season pass. I don't know a game that ever was still part of the, pardon my use of this cliche, cultural zeitgeist. I never knew a game that stayed alive long enough to warrant a second season pass.
I'm trying to think of if I can
good
think
on them,
of one,
I guess.
yeah, that had a second one. I think maybe one of the Call of Duties had one recently.
I believe that. Just because we made $1 billion. Let's keep making stuff to make more money. Well, maybe you don't need season passes anymore because you have 50,000 things you can microtransact.
Yeah, that's true. That's really spoiling a lot of stuff these days. Just because even though sometimes they're not as kind of brute forcey as some, like every game's not Battlefront. But the fact that they're just there, it's like it's just it doesn't look good.
We talked a lot about Red Dead on our last episode, and as far as I want to just talk about Rockstar for a second, because I mean, GTA 5 came out 5 years, almost 6 years ago now.
Yeah.
Seriously, 6 years ago. And I mean, a lot of people say it's just completely stupid now, and it kind of is because you got flying motorcycles with unlimited rockets and shit that blow you up for no reason.
That sounds good to me.
But the fact that they're still putting DLCs in for free and people are still playing it like crazy, I think more game companies should be like Rockstar.
Yeah, I think that's always the best approach, like because a lot of the microtransactions, and I think just the sort of the nickel and dimey approach to games now, it rubs a lot of people the wrong way, and I think a lot of that is because when that's a really bad example, I feel that it's a game that at the core doesn't feel like it's really giving you enough for that $60 or like £50 or whatever you're paying for your game day one. If you pay whatever you pay for your game and it's day one, like Black Ops 4 was a pretty good example for me recently. That's the first Call of Duty I've ever bought day one because I really wanted to try Blackout, the Battle Royale mode. I'd never tried that before, and I've always liked the way Call of Duty plays, but I've never played it multiplayer, ever. I've always just played single player and Spec Ops, and I love the Horde mode that they put in Modern Warfare 3. So I've got Black Ops 4 day one. It was like £46, I think. And, you know, obviously there's stuff in there that you can spend extra money on, but, you know, I played multiplayer, like, I actually learned multiplayer, like, I'd never learned Call of Duty multiplayer before, that was really fun, I loved Blackout, I still play Blackout now. The stuff in Call of Duty doesn't really bother me, because I think, well, I paid my money, and I've gotten so much enjoyment out of this, that, yeah, there's extra stuff there, but the core package was of, you know, a good value that I don't feel like they're trying to, you know, sell me half a game and then sell me the rest, you know, sort of later on.
Yeah, patch in the rest after you already bought what you thought was a full game. On Twitter, I think the official Xbox account posted something, I think it was like last Thursday, asking like worst video game villain or best video game villain, depending on how you look at it. And I replied Todd Howard. And I was like, oh, wait, you're talking about a villain actually in a game, not like the villain of a video game community. I've been on this thing lately where I love watching all these anti-Fallout 76 videos on YouTube, and it makes me want to buy Fallout 76 just to see if it really is as shit as
Don't do it. Just play Ninja Gaiden some more.
Yes.
So the thing with Fallout 76 is it's attracting me just because I guess I have this sort of like, oh, there's about to be a terrible train wreck coming up, and
it's the car accident mentality, isn't it?
Yeah.
You can't not look.
That's all. That's all it is. It's just a car accident, and it'd be like that scene in Speed where the bus hits the stroller, but there's actually like 5 babies in it instead of like 50 cans, and I just can't turn away. Like I want to see this failure that is a game for myself, and I want to just, I don't know, I want to join in on the vitriol. Just everybody's looking at Bethesda like, dude, we know you're full of shit. Why are you up here trying to keep? You're still selling us this, and you're like, oh, it's fine. Everything's fine, and everything's on fire. And they're that dog sitting in the room while everything's on fire, and they're just like, oh,
There are also a lot of fans of that game, like loyal as hell Bethesda fans that are defending it too.
Yeah.
I've never understood that, in particular with Bethesda games. I've never been like a big RPG guy, because generally a lot of the really big RPGs that I've seen either play poorly in my book or are kind of janky, and I never get why people are so eager to say, "Oh no, it's not janky." It's, you know, and I think like there's nothing wrong with liking a game that's kind of, you know, bad. Like there's plenty of games I like that, from, you know, like a mechanical standpoint, aren't, you know, well polished, but they're still fun. And the Bethesda thing is something, because every single time a game would come out, you know, like Elder Scrolls, Fallout, there's always this volcano eruption of people saying everything's on fire, everything's broken, where's the patches, and yet later on in the year, you know, it's the best game ever made.
Yeah.
And I think, wait, hang on a minute, you know, that doesn't
I'm
really
not going to
make
get
any
my
sense.
patches. I have to remain loyal. I concede. It's not that bad.
Yeah, and, you know, I mean, I've not played 76, but from what I've seen, there was this video going around. God, what was it? I think it was it like the death of Fallout 76 or something? I can't remember what the channel it was on. But I was watching that video, and it basically outlined like every bug, every kind of big thing that happened and went wrong with the game. And I thought, surely some of this has to be made up. Like, no launch for a game can be this bad. You know, how did people give the green light to say, release it, put it out, it's fine?
Yeah,
like,
this is good. Yeah, I think I watched the same video. I watched it last week. I think that's what started it all, because YouTube just kept recommending it to me. Kept popping up.
Yeah, me too.
All right, I concede. I'll watch it. And I'm trying to find it. I think the thumbnail is like Todd Howard's face, like in this white background, and he looks all like, it looks like a sunrise, but it's his freaking face.
Yeah, I think that is
it. The Fall of 76 by Internet Historian.
That's the one. Yeah, it's definitely the one.
It's 25 minutes, and it's very, for lack of a better word, methodical.
Yeah.
It's like he had a lesson plan, and he's like, all right, number 1, we're going to talk about the build up to this game. Number 2, we're going to talk about this. And it's very structured, and which it sort of lends to what you were saying. Like, there's no way this is a falsehood, because just look at how well compiled this video is, and it's almost like a law case to the judge. You're like, look at all this evidence.
Yeah,
anybody with half a brain can see how messed up this whole thing is, and they're still up there defending it. And yet, like Dietrich said, you have people out there defending it like they had a hand in creating it.
Yeah, there's It's so weird to me. I don't. There's a couple of examples I can think of off the top of my head. Did any one recently? This is a particular one for me because I don't know if you've seen the video on YouTube. But I did put up a brief sort of blog about when I actually worked in games coverage. I worked for a gaming website, and I had Duke Nukem Forever for review. If you guys know that game.
Oh my gosh.
I remember that.
Yeah, and I had that game for review. It was like one of my biggest. It was the first time I'd ever got like a high-profile release for review. So I thought, okay, I'm gonna play this game tons, and I did. And oh god, that game is awful.
I bet it is.
It's so bad. And understandably, my review was not very kind. Like this game was really bad. I think they had a 10-point scoring system, but it was decimalized, so it was essentially 100 points. And I gave it a 3 out of 10, which in hindsight was way too high. Because it just really is a terrible game. And at the time, it was one of the few reviews on the site. This was back in like 2009, before video kind of blew up the way it did now. But there were comments of people defending it. They were saying like, no, this game is fine. The frame rate is great. And I thought like, no, it isn't. Like, it's just objectively not a good frame rate. Like, it plays terribly. The graphics are PS2 era at best.
I remember the Duke Nukem game on the N64, and even that was terrible.
Which one was that?
Was it just Duke Nukem 64? Is that
Yeah,
what it's called?
I think because
maybe
because the game you played, that was like vaporware. Like nobody thought it would ever come out, and maybe it should have stayed that way.
Yeah, Duke Nukem Forever. Like when it came out, because I remember they put out a trailer. Gearbox picked it up because when 3D
it was
Realms
just straight
went
up Duke Nukem 64, and there was another one called 0 Hour.
I'm not sure because I never actually had an N64 back then. I had a PS1, and like that had Duke Nukem 3D on it from the PC, which was actually good. But yeah,
shuddered.
Just when that came out, and another one, Assassin's Creed 3 was another one at the time. Like that had a really bad launch.
Oh man, it's like they hyped that game up so much, and it was so disappointing.
It was, and I was so excited for that game because the setting is something that's not actually been done, if I can think of at least, in a game that high profile, that era in American history. I thought this is awesome. I cannot wait to play this. This is absolutely fantastic. You play it and the characters wouldn't.
They showed you a bunch of stuff in the advertisements that never happened in the game. It was so frustrating.
Yeah, I don't understand like how that's not regulated. You know when they show like a CG trailer of like some MMO, and it's like this amazing, like, the trailer is breathtaking. It's this amazing, like, more than likely motion captured, animated, like fight scene. It looks awesome. And
Knights of the Old Republic, they are so guilty for that.
Yeah, exactly. And then you see the actual gameplay, and you're like, what the fuck is this? Like, this isn't...
Yeah. That was a conversation recently after this past E3. They showed a fully pre-rendered little movie for the next Gears of War, and everybody's just like, yeah, it's great and everything if all you're doing is building up hype, but you didn't have to do all that just to tell me, hey, we're making a new Gears of War game, because you didn't show me or tell me anything else. So nobody knows how that game is going to turn out or what it's going to be like, and even then, even if they did show us something, you'd have another Watch Dogs.
Yeah, I think that's what... Do you think maybe that's because game genres and kind of mechanics have got to a point where, it's a third-person shooter. I know how that's going to play. Like, the camera's going to be offset. My guy is going to be here. I'm going to pull the left trigger to aim. I'm going to pull the right trigger to shoot. If I press A, he'll probably dive or go into cover. Maybe that's why.
Over here in the lower corner.
Yeah, like you have a little HUD. Like I remember seeing the gameplay demo. Ironically, it was after I'd played the game. A friend of mine recommended Horizon Zero Dawn on PS4, and I'm usually like a bit averse to RPGs, so I thought, I'm not really sure if that's going to be my cup of tea. But turns out that game's combat is actually really, really fun and really fun to mess with. And I went back and looked at the E3 demo for it, and they just showed you fighting the Thunderjaw in it, which is like the robot T-Rex. They just showed that gameplay of someone playing it. Like, right, I'm going to fight this dinosaur. I hope I don't get killed, because this is a live demo of the game. And people went crazy for it. Like, oh my god, actual gameplay. At E3, they didn't just show us some CG trailer that looks cool but isn't the game.
Well, I watched a little thing on Halo 2, and that's actually what Bungie sort of did. They were like, we're going to show off this Halo 2 demo, and they even prefaced it with Sergeant Johnson saying, this is not some bullshit pre-rendered video. This is actual gameplay. And then if you look behind the scenes, it turns out that that wasn't on Xbox hardware, and what they did was half scripted. And I remember playing Halo 2. I got it when the day it came out, and I finished that game in like a few hours. I just wouldn't stop playing it. I don't think I stopped to eat or go to the bathroom or anything. I just played right through it, straight to finish. And when you get to that level in Mombasa, it definitely did not turn out the way it did in the demo, and I was very underwhelmed. I was disappointed, and I think for the same reasons you talk about Assassin's Creed 3. All of Assassin's Creed 2, the entire Ezio, was it trilogy? There was a trilogy.
There was 3.
There's 2, Brotherhood and Revelation.
Yeah, and even though they weren't the best games, they actually took their time to develop a character.
Yeah.
So they had that going for them.
Yeah,
and Ezio really kind of carried. Well, I thought Brotherhood was great though.
Brotherhood was the best Assassin's Creed hands down, in my opinion.
Brotherhood didn't feel like a stopgap at all.
In that last one, when they reached back a little bit and Altair's story, I was like, I kind of liked because the first game kind of it had its own mystique too. Because the entire time you're just like, yeah, I'm just going to go around killing people, and then like the last 10 minutes, they're like, hey, here's the Apple of Eden. There's a lot of weird shit going on. You're just like, wait, what kind of freaking game am I playing?
Yeah.
And so there was a lot that was being carried forward from Assassin's Creed 2 that 3 failed to live up to, and the same thing happened with Halo 2. And I was just like, man, this environment is drab, and there's just not as much going on here as what I saw in the demo. What the hell happened? And it took me a while, I guess, because like you said, there wasn't YouTube. The flow of information back then wasn't as quick as it is today. So it took a little while.
That Halo 2 ending in 2004. Can you imagine if I don't think a game really has the clout now that it did, just because of the way times were different. But can you imagine if, say, Call of Duty had that kind of like narrative momentum? And they came out.
You're just
with,
like, all right, here we go.
Whatever it is.
Credit.
Yeah, and you just get hit by that ending. Like Twitter, Facebook, YouTube would crash because people just would be so quick to like, this is they'd act like they'd like stolen their house from them. But like back in 2004, you were just kind of in this echo chamber of like, no one cares about video games. This ending's so bad, but no one gives a shit.
Hey, just a little bit of tidbit of information about Assassin's Creed. Or Ezio. The guy who does his voice is very famous for doing the voice of Sonic the Hedgehog and also Batman from Arkham Origin. I'm sorry. What's the second Batman game?
Arkham City.
Arkham City. Yeah, he did Batman in that game too.
That's kind of awesome. I did not know that.
Do you have a name?
Roger Craig Smith.
Oh, I was expecting you to say like Nolan North or something because
Nolan North is I want to say Nolan North is one of like the biggest voice actors. Roger Craig Smith is like, if they can't afford Kevin Conroy, they get this guy.
Oh, nice. I'd like to be that guy.
Right.
Being Batman, being Batman, I'll say that's cool though.
Yeah. I'm really into voice actors, and there are a lot of these guys. Nolan North, John DiMaggio, who does the voice of Bender in Futurama. That guy is my hero. Mm-hmm. But Kevin Conroy has made his entire career doing one fucking character, and everybody knows this dude's voice, and that is just really impressive to me. He's never done anything besides Batman, and that's just so cool to me.
I guess like, if it goes well, what else do you need?
Right. Anybody that would hear his voice is like, say, a Disney character would be like, well, that's Batman. I can't associate this now.
Yeah, I think that is kind of weird when you when you know the voice from something else and you hear the voice come out of a character and you think, oh, that that's this character. That's not this guy.
Well, there's a guy. So do you remember the original Lion King? The voice of Scar was played by Jeremy Irons. It was. It was. Now, Scar's song, Be Prepared, for some reason, I don't know exactly what, Jeremy Irons couldn't finish it. He started the song, he couldn't finish it. Jim Cummings a very, very famous voice actor whose most popular voice is Winnie the Pooh. You hear him in all kinds of games too. He's in Skyrim. He's in Grand Theft Auto. He's the guy that works at the gun store in Grand Theft Auto. I don't know why, but anyway, he finished the song for Jeremy Irons, and he did such a good job with it. You can't tell that it's not Jeremy Irons.
No,
it's like 2/3 of the way through the song, it's not Jeremy Irons anymore, and you would have never known.
I'll have to look that up, because this is the part where I blow everyone's mind and say that I grew up, like, in a similar era to you guys. I've never seen The Lion King.
What?
There
goes my brain.
Yeah, that's like that. Seriously, when people say that and they're like, "What were you doing instead?" and I think of the timeline, and my response is, "I was probably playing Resident Evil on the PS1 instead of watching Disney movies." Like,
I mean, not even in passing. Like, you didn't walk into somebody's house and it was just on at some point.
No, that's kind of how that's how nerdy I was growing up. It was video games and like nothing else existed. Like, I didn't read books. Like I checked out of storybooks like as a kid. Like, as soon as I got like my Mega Drive, which was what the Genesis was called in the UK.
Oh man!
As soon as I got that, it was lights out. It was video games like pretty much non-stop until I was about 17. Like, I'm not gonna lie.
Well, I feel sort of out of the loop too on the Resident Evil front. I see your videos on Resident Evil 4, and then I watched. I think I watched Markiplier playing through the new Resident Evil 2, and I'm sitting over here like, I played Silent Hill 2, and that was it. I never played Resident Evil.
Yeah, Resident Evil was one of those games where, like, if you had a PS1 back then, like, pretty much everybody had Resident Evil. It was just.
I guess I was the one oddball. I played Metal Gear Solid, which might be the other game that.
Yeah, that's probably the other one. There's probably a few like that. Metal Gear Solid is definitely one. Resident Evil, I think Tekken 2, like, everybody probably had Tekken 2 at some point.
Dude, I'm with you. I never played it, Resident Evil or Silent Hill. Never played a single one of them.
Oh, Resident Evil was so goddamn cool, and like, they're so nostalgic for me now. Like, I've always said it when people ask, like, what's your favorite of like the old school Resident Evil games, which is 1, 2, and 3, and I just think I can't pick. Like, they're all in their own weird way, they're all perfect. So I just cannot pick a favorite. I
remember the days before internet. I had no way of knowing what was actually good, and I remember seeing this one game for the PS1 on the Walmart rack or somewhere. It was called Danger Girl, and I swear that is probably the worst game of all time. If you ever get a second, look it up on YouTube or something. It is just I want to say it's like Duke Nukem with a way lower budget.
What the hell are you doing picking up a game called that?
Dude, I was like 14 or 15. I don't know. I didn't have the money for it. I convinced my mom to buy it for me, and she's like, "Why the hell do you want this? This looks bad." Even my mom, who knew nothing about it,
like, "What are you doing?"
was telling me not to get it, but I wanted it anyway.
It's like my dad when I asked him to take me to the Pokemon movie. He was just like, "Why? Why are we doing that?" I'm like, "Well, I like Pokemon. I want to go see it."
You liked Well, that was before we met too.
Yeah, that was 6th, 7th, 8th grade. I also was into Magic just a little bit, but then my deck got stolen. So
man, the Pokemon thing just missed me entirely. I don't get why everybody around me loved it, and I just never liked it.
I'm with you on that. I hated Pokemon when that fucking thing came around. I was in I think what you guys call middle school, when you're between the age of 6 and 10. Is that right?
That would be elementary for us.
Oh, elementary. Okay, so yeah, that's when that sort of came around for me. And like in the UK, like at that time, you could have like the odd thing for like your break time and that, like yo-yos and stuff. But for the most part, everybody just ran. You would race because that's what you did back then. Because again, no smartphones, no DSs, no iPhone. You ran.
You went outside and played.
Yeah, you went outside and played, and then almost overnight, it seemed like you'd go out into like the area, like the playground outside the school, and instead of people racing, there was just these huddles of people. And I was looking around thinking, like, what the hell is going on?
They're playing fucking Pokemon.
Yeah, and they weren't even playing the game. They were just trading cards. And I was there like, do you guys want to race? Like, no. I want to see if anyone's got, like Hitmonchan or whatever. And it got to the point where just nobody did anything, so I just started collecting energy cards because people never wanted them, and like ended up with a huge stack of energy cards. And again, before people knew what was rare, in the decks, you know, people then, you know, we started getting internet access, and people, you know, that's when people got crazy, like, oh, you know, if you got this card, apparently there's only one made in like every 10,000, or, you know, whatever they made. So yeah, Pokemon is a sore spot for me, because it just ruined like my last year of that school. I was like, man, no one wants to do anything.
And then a couple years ago, it came back with that Pokemon Go bullshit.
Yeah. Oh my god.
And now you have grown men, you have adults walking around catching Pokemon in random locations.
I don't
like,
get
I thought
that.
Is this ever going to go away?
Yeah.
It's so dumb.
I really don't get the whole Pokemon, like, sort of, you know, being almost age neutral in a way. You know, like, it does not care. Like, everyone, you know, you can know, like, some 80-year-old, like, he could be like way into Pokemon, and you just wouldn't know.
There was not too long back where I saw some people that, or some kids that actually had some cards, and I ended up asking them, hey, do you know how to play the game? And they didn't even know it was a game.
Oh yeah, that was really common as well back then, because the game I actually did.
This was like, dude,
game.
this was like 6 months ago.
Oh, that's kind of crazy in this day and age. But yeah, like when it was new, I remember looking into the rules and I was thinking, this is actually quite cool. Like, the actual game is kind of interesting, but people just didn't care. It was just, nope, just want to trade cards.
You know, it's interesting that you brought up Magic the Gathering, because believe it or not, I played a game of Magic yesterday.
What are you still doing? Wait, with who?
My buddy Kirk. He brings over. At some point, he wanted to start playing again, and we did. And he bought a couple decks, and they're just sitting in my house. And he came over yesterday. He's like, "You want to play some Magic?" I was like, "Sure, let's do it." And we had a ton of fun.
I wanted to be incredulous at first, but I see an ad on YouTube before, like, almost every other video for like an online Magic the Gathering game.
Dude, it's awesome.
Yeah,
and there's like tournaments and stuff. Yeah. And I'm like, what? So has that ever really gone away? Is it making a comeback, or has it always just sort of maintained in the background? Because
Magic has always been there. They're making they make new cards every day since like 1985 or something. It's still a thing. And at least, you know, it's a goofy card game just like Pokemon, but at least the people that are in the Magic the Gathering know what the hell the cards do.
Yeah, they're actually.
I remember going to a tournament once when I was a kid at the Tri-County Mall.
There you go.
And I had this deck I was really proud of, and I sit across from this dude who's like 600 pounds, and he's got like 4 hairs on his chin and glasses and stuff, and he's really like condescending, you know. So I'm like, all right, let's do it. We play, and he beats me in like 2 turns. And he's so hateful about it. I was like, dude, it's just a game. And it's cool to get into a game, but to take it that seriously, it's just a card game. It's supposed to be fun.
Yeah, and I think that puts people off too. I think that's still a problem. I think, especially now in online stuff, and I think it is less of an issue. But you know, like, you know, if you are really good at something, I think the worst thing you can do is be, you know, exclusionary and be like, oh,
a dick about it.
Yeah, I'm so good, because then people aren't gonna want to pick up whatever it is you're into, you know.
And you're feeding into the stigma that comes along with it.
Yeah, that too. I think it's better now, but that's one reason why I like it when people ask questions on videos and stuff, because it makes me think, and it enables me to hopefully help people. If people asked a question like, oh, how do you do that technique? And my response was, oh, what a scrub. Like, you know, you don't know how to do that.
Figure it out for yourself. Like
yeah. They would think, oh, wow, like, that guy's a dick. You know, I'm not going to get into that game now. And that's how communities, generally speaking, at least in games, that's usually how they fizzle out, is, you know, new players. You know, if your response to a new player that genuinely wants to learn and get good, as is said now, and if your response is fuck off, like, you know, how do you expect your community and your game to grow and actually get bigger?
I see you as sort of a, I mean, and there could be a bunch of other playthroughs and Ninja Gaiden videos out there. Mention a few of the big names from way back in the Game Facts days. That's how I say Game Facts. I see what you're saying, though. It could be game FAQs. I think everybody knows what everybody's talking about.
Yeah.
But you're like, man, you're like the pioneer, at least for me, because like I said earlier, when he's like, hey man, let's get Ninja Gaiden out, and I'm like, hey man, I don't know what happened, but I suck at this. I found you, and I'm taking notes, and I listen to your commentary videos, and I'm like, okay, I need to approach this game a different way than I used to.
Yeah.
And cussing at me under his breath.
I'm much older and more mature now, so there is a strategy I could figure this out, and it hasn't really stopped. Now I'm trying to do this mentor run on NG2, and it's freaking hard, and I can't. I can't even get started on chapter 4, chapter 5, just because the enemies are so damn cheap. And there are a few NG2 channels out there, a few playthroughs of those. And there was one guy, I won't name names, who has a Master Ninja, like a virgin Master Ninja run. Not like he beat the game Master Ninja and he's going through it again with all the weapons.
So yeah, it's not New Game Plus.
Yeah. There is another person, I will name Iconoclast something. I think this guy's, or girl, I don't know, they're in Japan. And that person is just unreal with the level of ferocity. Like I see this person use Ryu in ways I never thought possible. Like lethal. I can't believe it. This other person though, I'm watching his videos on NG2, and I'm like, okay, I'm taking a few notes, and I'm putting a few things in the back pocket, because I'm like, all right, I don't need to open that chest immediately, because it's just Ninpo essence. I'll save that for later. Blah blah blah. Well, I reached out to this person on Twitter, followed him just a little bit, and his posts are weird, I guess. Like, they're really harsh. What's the word I'm looking for? They're just very, I guess, galvanizing. It's like he has a huge chip on his shoulder, and so he's just talking shit. But it's not directed to anybody. It's just like walking out your front door and just screaming obscenities into the air. There could be people there. There could be nobody there, but that's what this guy's kind of was doing. And I'm like, man, I don't feel like following this guy anymore, and I don't feel like watching his videos anymore, because he might be good at this game, but he's not, like, he doesn't go out his way to be helpful. And I even paid him a comment. I was like, man, your NG2 videos are pretty sweet. I'm using those, sort of a guide, and like, I got really nothing in regards to that. He was just too busy going on his tear about God knows what and who knows what. So I don't know. It's almost like, man, are we trying to like get people into this old game? Because personally, I would love if more people watched your videos and even watched mine, just to watch, and know more about what I think is the hardest freaking game ever made. Screw Dark Souls and Demon Souls and any of that shit. What was it? Bloodborne? No. Ninja Gaiden.
Bloodborne,
Ninja Gaiden sucks, but it's also the best freaking game ever. More people need to know. And sharing my suffering, because fuck that game. But God, I want to play it right now.
Everyone goes through that, and like I went through that, but now I'm at a point where, generally speaking, when people find people think something is cheap, or oh, I don't know how to do this, I can always explain it and say, well, actually, what's going on is this. You're looking at it like this, you need to sort of look at it like this, in a way. And that, I think, is I hope at least, would help people to try again, because I've seen videos, for example, one recent one, well, it's not recent anymore, but it was probably about 3 or 4 years ago. I was playing Tekken Tag Tournament 2, and I wanted to get better at it, and I found this character guide that someone had made for Kazuya. And it was like an hour and a half long. His name's the Main Man. He's quite big now in like the Tekken community as a content guy. He's really, really good. And I watched that video, and in that hour and a half, I learned more about Kazuya than I had learned in like 3 years playing Tekken. I thought, wow, this guy has just opened my eyes to like everything I didn't know was a thing, and now I can use all this. And then I immediately went online and just started using some of the basic tools, and was destroying people and thinking, oh, this is great. Everything is clicking. And then you get to like the next wall where you start encountering the people that know that stuff, and then it starts all over again. You're like, oh man, I don't actually know everything I need to learn. And when, like you get people like that, I found one recently while doing that Resident Evil 4 run. There was a channel, and he's maybe one of the best RE4 players I've ever seen. Genuinely, like his knowledge and precision in that game is unbelievable, but he's such a prick. But like, it's just, you know. And I was watching these videos, and like, I was like, why don't these have more views? Like, this guy is unreal. And then I read the comments and was like, oh, that's why, because like you just aren't cool. You're just not a nice person. And I think that goes such a long way. You know, you can be the best player in the world, but if people don't like you and you're not welcoming and you don't want to help people don't care. You know, you have to strike that balance. And also, I think, like when you say about people having the chip on their shoulder, I think that's really common these days, is that people have this almost weird phobia of like being wrong. And that happens for me in NG. Granted, I'm not going to like kind of play fake. It doesn't happen that often. I'm not wrong that often in that game. But when I am, I don't go on the defensive like pretty much everybody does these days. They're like, oh, well, you know, so-and-so told me this. It's not my fault. It's easier to just be, oh, okay, well, I was wrong. Cool. Thanks for letting me know.
Yeah.
Most people... You know, that kind of goes into what we've been talking about just personally, just, you know, like if I call him after work or something, we talk a lot about just trying to be a decent person in general, not be a dick all the time.
Yeah, and it just seems so common in this day and age. I made a blog about this. Like negativity is so popular these days. It's, you look on YouTube and that, and what was going around recently. Oh, did you guys see the Fortnite World Cup? That was it. That Fortnite tournament where that kid.
I can't get into that thing either. That's just like Pokemon for me, man.
I can't get into it either, but the winner won $3 million for placing first. Yeah,
it's crazy.
And it was,
and that ninja guy made like $30 million just for switching whatever service he was on.
Yeah, and I think good for them, you know. And I think a lot of that is like when older people talk about it, and by older I mean sort of like the previous generation. They were doing it with regards to the Fortnite thing. There was all these news clips going around of people just like taking the piss out of him, like, oh, you know, he has to train, and they put train in air quotes. And I think like you are so ignorant about this. You like you are ignorant. B, you don't even want to become informed. You're just, you know, you are just hating from the sidelines. And I think the elephant in the room is that the average person, when it comes to games, for example, these like top Fortnite players, the average person could probably get all their expenses paid for an entire year, train non-stop for a year, play these top players, and they would get slaughtered. And they,
oh yeah, absolutely.
You know, they don't want to admit that. It's easier to just hate on it and be like, oh, you know, it's stupid, and you know, the older generation just doesn't get it. And I feel like, why don't you want to become informed on it? You know, like, I don't really understand that. You know, I think there is that generational gap. And for me, you know, for example, I'd like to think that if I was, say, 20 years older and I had a kid that was like, you know, a world champion at a video game, I would want to get, you know, informed, and I would want to know, I'd want to support him or her in doing it. I wouldn't be like, oh,
yeah, take care of me when I'm older, kid.
Yeah, exactly, that too, yeah. It's like, don't forget about your old man. But, yeah, I don't know. I don't get that. I don't get why people are so eager to just be, you know, so venomous these days. It's well, I suppose in a way I do. It's what gets attention at the end of the day, which is another problem.
Yeah.
You know,
people who are the loudest usually get the attention the quickest.
Yeah. Yeah,
that's who everybody listens to, because like that's all they can hear.
It's a different time, you know. Like I was just thinking this morning. In fact, we started this podcast. We started this thing a few weeks ago. We don't have any. We've got a couple subscribers. Nobody's really listening to us. That's okay. But we've already talked to a few people that we would have never gotten a chance to talk to, like you. Mm-hmm. And you know, just the fact that we can connect with people across the fucking world that have the same interests as us, I think that's the coolest thing ever. And the internet just never ceases to amaze me because of stuff like this.
I agree 100%. I think especially sort of, I know there's various terms for them, but generally I think anyone sort of in their early 20s maybe and younger that's kind of grown up with the internet as it is sort of now, I think it's a bit lost on them, like how amazing it is to actually be able to, you know, do something like this and, you know, post online and actually create content. I mentioned it at the start of the podcast. You know, most people probably don't have any idea like what went into making a video and putting it on the internet in 2004. That was an immense pain in the arse to do back then, which is why no one did it.
Just watching people edit now, like I watch, I watch Markiplier and stuff, and Dashy, and those guys are goofy as hell, but they are geniuses when it comes to editing these videos.
Yeah,
I don't care how goofy and loud they are; they're really good at what they do.
Yeah, and even that has become so much easier. I remember, to use the example of early 2004, if you wanted video editing software, unless you pirated it, obviously, you were looking at best part of $1,000 for an editing suite for that. I remember when recording in HD first came around. That was a big deal. But of course, at that time, storage wasn't cheap like it is now. Hard drives now for computers, it's kind of a joke how cheap they've become and how much storage you get. I
remember when a gigabyte hard drive was unbelievable.
Yeah, exactly. I mean
not a hard drive, like a gigabyte flash drive. That was unheard of.
Yeah, it was the same thing. I mean, did you guys ever have? You probably did. You have what was your first MP3 player? What was the capacity?
Oh my god!
Oh man. Oh, I had this little stupid knockoff of an iPod. It didn't have the scroll wheel. It just had little push down, and it was, oh man.